Hello there. What is going on, everyone? We have big news from Fantasy Flight coming later this week for the Vault series. This is a pretty big deal about old games that Fantasy Flight used to make that are going to be coming back to crowdfunding and will be launching in presumably October of this year. But what game is launching first? We have some hints. And Fantasy Flight has dropped some really cool stuff. Also, we are going to be announcing the winner for the $25 Amazon gift card giveaway at the end of this video. And then, of course, the next giveaway starts now. If you want to have a chance to enter to win that or any of my other giveaways, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. Let's jump right into it. Fantasy Flight dropped this clever little postcard on their social media channels this past week. It says, "Did you catch last year's in-flight report? Fantasy Flight Games is going to bring back some old board games on crowdfunding. It's something called the Vault. I wonder what those will look like. It has been a while since they mentioned it." And we haven't heard what game they'll be doing first. I figure it's got to be announced before PAX Unplugged, but I'm not sure when that will be. It would be great if someone could reveal the date. I just want to know when news is coming. What game do you think it will be? And then they have a cipher over here. Now, I'm not the best with ciphers, but a lot of folks have been looking at this, and there were quite a few. And honestly, I was half tempted to troll just a little bit and come up with like a fake cipher that kind of indicates that this says X-Wing miniatures or something like that. I was really tempted to do it, just to be like, look, and according to the Fantasy Flight's own cipher, or something like that. But I'm not going to do that. I don't want to put out false information. But I was tempted to troll just a little bit. I wanted you to know this is one of those situations where it's the thought that counts. And the thought was there. The action was not. That also counts. All right. So, but I know a lot of folks, a lot of Star Wars fans are wondering if they're going to be doing anything. Now, it has been brought up that this postcard is about the size of certain games in the style of some of their Lovecraftian Cthulhu-style games. Eldritch Horror was mentioned. But other folks have cited that they've been able to transfer this, basically to use this book cipher, and they've deciphered that it was July 29. So July 29th. And I don't know if that's exactly what it says, because like A86, well, there aren't if A is the first line of this, there aren't 86 characters. And if you start just wrapping around again, I didn't get a J. There is actually no J's in the first line anyway, so I don't know what book or page this is, and I had thought that it would have, corresponded to the writings right here, but it would be silly to have the cipher on the same thing if you were actually trying to be cryptographic, although I imagine that's not the case. Now, regardless of what the date is, it does stand to reason that, well, GenCon is this weekend. GenCon is the biggest convention for board games, and it is happening this weekend. There are going to be a lot of announcements. So July 29th does sound like an absolutely valid date. That's typically, look, Gen Con has always been historically where Fantasy Flight has always done their in-flight report. I would love to get some cool information coming out of the in-flight report this year. I'd love to give you guys a recap of it, and we'll probably talk about whatever Fantasy Flight does post. Even though I'm a little bit more of a board game and miniatures, or a miniatures and wargaming channel than a board game channel, I still cover board games, and I've always enjoyed Fantasy Flight's board games, or at least a large selection of them. Not necessarily all of them, but I know a lot of folks are wondering if they're going to bring back old games, especially fan favorites that are no longer in print, specifically licensed board games. And I don't think that this is a very likely option, at least for something to happen at first. I don't think Lucasfilm is too keen on Star Wars going straight to Kickstarter, or I don't think it'll be Kickstarter. I think it'll probably be GameFound that they end up using. But I don't expect that to find a Star Wars game on Kickstarter at this time. Although there's always a first time for everything, and if we look back in 20 years and we say, well, the first time it happened was X, X has to be at some point, right? So it's always possible that could change. I don't see it being something like Battlestar Galactica, also a fan favorite game, because they've already kind of reskinned that one in with the Lovecraftian theme. I don't see it being StarCraft, because the StarCraft license is over at Archon right now. More news from that. Also, if you're a StarCraft fan, probably going to be some news. I know a Wargamer has like an exclusive where they're going to be talking about stuff. Again, we'll talk more about that after, I think the 30th is when they're doing the big StarCraft announcements. So I don't expect it to be something like StarCraft, the board game, but I don't expect it to be any of the licensed games. Probably more likely to be something they have in-house. Popular ones are, again, all the Lovecraftian stuff. Eldritch Horror has been talked about. Maybe Descent, first edition, is one of those. They did recently kind of sunset the third edition of Descent, from what I have read, and it wouldn't be too crazy to expect that maybe Descent's original version could come back. I happened to play this, and I thought it was a fantastic game. I thought it was pretty cool. It does also kind of ask the question, if Descent is coming back, does that, because there's always was hope that we might see Imperial Assault come back for Star Wars, which was very similar to Descent, and again, it was a Star Wars skin of Descent, kind of, sorta. I mean, they had their own differences, but I always thought that would have been a really cool thing. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, though, especially with Hasbro and board game rights and stuff. At one point, they had definitely wanted to, but I don't think they've ever said that, that they're stopping production on Imperial Assault. I think it's still one of those games that still has certain products in print, because you can still buy it. But I don't know if they're going to relaunch that. It would be really cool, but again, probably not happening. At least not part of the Vault process. It could, maybe they could get a new deal going where they could kind of, throw back into print other stuff. I'm not too sure about that. There is one game that I would love for Fantasy Flight to kick back off. I'd love to see, well, there's multiple. There's two that I want to talk about in this video. The first one is Rune Wars. Rune Wars, the miniatures game. If we're talking about stuff that they already have the rights to, well, this is one they own. Asmodee owns Runebound, Rune Wars, the whole Terranoth world. There were lots of games that Fantasy Flight made in the world of Terranoth that just didn't do well at the time. And I think a big part of why Rune Wars didn't do that well is because they launched Star Wars Legion like immediately after it. And so I don't feel like, I know my energy and the people that I was playing with, our energies got shifted from Rune Wars to like a full stop, not buying anything else for this because we're buying everything for Legion. And that was, I mean, otherwise I'd have been happy to keep playing Rune Wars. This was a really solid game. It had very clever mechanics. It felt like a Fantasy Flight game, if that makes sense. For people who've played early Fantasy Flight games, FFG games, right? If you played early Fantasy Flight games, there was always this kind of sense of wonder and discovery and mystery and good token design, lousy boxes, but great contents. So you'd always need an organizer or some kind of organization solution. That was the early FFG kind of mantra, in my opinion, in my experiences, was the boxes were terrible, but like the interior, because there was no organizer. It was basically stuff was just thrown in there in bags. But once you came up with your own solution, you were left with a brilliant, wonderful, clever game. They always used custom dice, a lot of custom components, but when I was starting out into board gaming, every FFG box I opened, I was just in love with. And this game definitely fit the bill. The whole, like, if you've ever played X-Wing or whatever, you have your dial that you're going to set. You had two dials that you were setting for these guys, and they could combo off of each other, and they could do really cool things. You could say, I'm going to do this one, but I'm going to power it up to a level of this. And, and there were consequences for pushing too far. It was also a rank and file game, which, there's not a whole lot of those. There's the old world right now. So again, maybe this is something that they might do, but I don't know if Fantasy Flight would actually relaunch Rune Wars miniatures game. I feel like that would be something that could go over to AMG, but AMG isn't the only studio at Asmodee that currently makes miniatures. But this one is a miniatures game, so I don't know if they'll do this or maybe something else in the Runebound or Terranoth universe. Anything in this universe is a possibility. It's also something they have the IP to, but Rune Wars miniatures game especially was really, really cool. I really liked it. I think Descent is actually in this universe as well, so I may have already been talking about it. Forgive me if I, if I already was talking about stuff. And the Descent is, I believe, in the Terranoth universe, but this was a miniatures war game as opposed to Descent being a kind of co-op strategy campaign, like a dungeon crawl. So, again, lots of different games, a lot of stuff they could pull from that. They could also pull stuff from Twilight Imperium, different universes that they own. There's a lot of that. As far as stuff that they don't own, my favorite board game of all time, Star Wars Rebellion. Well, my favorite two-player board game of all time, Star Wars Rebellion. This is a game in desperate need for a second edition. I say desperate need. I probably exaggerate by saying that. It's at the top of my list for games that I'd love to see done with a new edition, like with a little bit of cleanup. The game is almost perfect. It's about as perfect as any board game I've ever owned. The expansion is exceptional for it. I felt like it needed a little bit more. And there's a handful of rules interactions that the rule book covers 99.9% of every question you could ever have when you're playing this game. But there are a handful of things you're like, well, how does that work? How does that work? And there's things where you sometimes need to go to Board Game Geek, or there's a Star Wars Rebellion like a wiki, and then there's also a Star Wars Rebellion Discord, and like this game has like a cult following. It's incredibly good. It's extremely well designed, and it's Star Wars in a box. It's an incredible experience. I'd love for them to do another version of this, and if it does well, I'd love for them to expand on this, do a Clone Wars version as well. A second edition could even be like a double-sided board that it could play Galactic Civil War or Clone Wars versions. I think the two would be so different, though. I don't know if they would like kind of work in the same box or not. It'd probably have to be an expansion to make it Clone Wars. But there's so many thoughts and stuff and ways I'd love to see Star Wars Rebellion kind of come back. And I've already bought this board game twice. Is how I played the first one until it was in, like, ground the cards to dust. Bought a whole nother box and expansion so I could have 2 sets of dice for this game, because this is my only complaint with what comes in the box is you don't get enough dice, and they never sold a dice pack for this. You kind of have to keep handing the dice off, across the table and stuff. And I wanted a pair of dice for you and a pair of dice for me, and so that was part of the other reason. Bought a whole board. I mean, that's how much I play this game. Absolutely love it. It's number one for 2-player board games in my entire list. So would love to see this one come back, get the kind of second edition treatment, and even if somehow the second edition is somehow worse, hey, I've still got this version. So to me, it's risk free. I'm going to be happy no matter what. This is a shut up and take my money thing. Again, this might not be something that they launch on crowdfunding. This may be something that they just announce. So if they happen to ever announce this, and this is something that happens with just regular in-flight report stuff, who knows? But let me know some of your thoughts on what you think the first game in the Vault series is going to be. It should be announced this weekend at GenCon at the in-flight report. It's going to be really exciting. We have a winner to announce. Also, our winner for our $25 Amazon gift card giveaway is Art Fell BN. Congratulations, Art. Go ahead and shoot me an email at mailcrabok@gmail.com and we'll get you squared away. If you did not win, don't worry. The new giveaway starts right now. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. Check out the discount codes we have in the description below. You can save 15% on mats and accessories over at Game Toppers by using code Crabbok15. And also you can head over to Battle Foam and get your Battle Foam and Magnaracks and cases and all that stuff by using code Crabbok15 or Crabbok VIP over at Battle Foam. It's all in the scrolling bar above, and there's links in the description below. You can save 15% on both of those sites. Amazing products. Definitely check them out, and I will talk to you guys later. A big thanks to my patrons, by the way, before I get into the end spiel. Patrons, you guys are awesome. I have some new features coming out soon with some hot topic stuff, so look on Patreon for some posts about that. We've got some cool new things that are coming. All right, I will talk to you guys later. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all. And always wash your socks.